Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. Welcome to In a Lonely Place. And, I'm here by myself at Rolling Live Studios. We stopped doing the show, of course, in my living room because we got to travel out. We're, of course, social distancing and doing the right thing, but I love being able to come here and do it. First of all, I have a bigger screen to look at, and it's been so much fun doing the show. And I invited a friend of mine, someone I've known for a very, very long time, and loved his music and all the contributions he's made to so many other artists that I've loved and been friends with as well. It's kind of interesting. We've this parallel that's gone back for so many years. He's got a great new album out called Hum as well, which is really, really beautiful record. And I'm happy to have him here today. He made it all the way back from Chile, which I know was pretty crazy during this whole pandemic, but he finally made it back to California. So my guest today is Alain Johannes. Alan, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, man, how are you? Good to see you, buddy.
It's great to see you too, man.
Yeah.
I reached out to you when you were still in Chile, and I know that
Yep.
you were, recording with the amazingly talented, great Taylor Momsen. Of course, you guys did The Keeper, which we used during the detour thing that we did for the benefit of all the venues and cares for Neva, and what an incredible performance that was of the two of you. I love that.
I'm such a fan of her voice. She's incredible, and it was a real honor for me. And we really, I feel we did Chris proud. The beautiful song, "The Keeper," and she just really nailed it. And we got the feeling of the song really alive. It came from love, and it was amazing. It was an amazing thing to be able to do.
Tell me about coming back home from Chile, because you were stuck there for a while. And, for those people watching, some of them may know. And if they don't know, you're originally, you're from Chile,
Yes.
And so being back over there, tell me a bit about what you went down there for Lollapalooza, right? Because Lollapalooza was supposed to take place at that time, right?
Yes, exactly. I think March 27th, I think, with my trio and a couple of friends like Chris Aedo on vocals and Ignacio on guitar and bass. We were going to do Euphoria Morning in its entirety. And then obviously, like on the 16th, they locked us down. And it was pretty intense down there because you couldn't really go out except twice a week and only with a permit, which you had to get online. And then they would check all the stores. They would check your permit, check your temperature. So it took me quite. I was heading back home for one day to repack, and then I was heading out to a European solo tour, which was supposed to start April 2nd. So get the lockdown starts, and then the flights keep getting canceled, and I rebook another one. And just to be safe, I just kind of made it every few weeks or so for the next flight to kind of measure where things were at, because it was early days in the pandemic, and I'd just come from being ill for almost 2.5 months in bed here in LA with something that was similar to what they described COVID as being. They didn't know what it was. It could have been pneumonia, bronchitis. Antibiotics didn't do anything. They gave me steroids. Finally, it helped. I got up from that illness to make Hum, in 12 days, and made my way out, into the world to go and, live and make music and tour. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting in the room just like staring at the wall for like 5 months.
What was
But
that like?
yeah,
What was that like? Was it a small, did you just have a rented room kind of thing? Was it like a bed and breakfast or just a?
yeah. No, there was eventually an Airbnb. At first, I was staying with cousins, and then I got my own Airbnb. You know what? It was a really nice place. It was small, but it was convenient. Just obviously couldn't go out much, and I did have, thankfully, I carry a little portable rig with me, so I was able to do a bit of playing. I have some equipment down that I always keep there for when I go down and play with my trio. With Cote and Fela Fonseca. I had my, I have guitars and amps and effects, and so I kind of grabbed those. I borrowed a mic, and I made a makeshift mic stand with a music stand and some gaffer. And next thing you know, I had a little setup, so I was able to do a bit of, remote guesting, playing solos on stuff, and obviously, with Taylor and everything. So, it was a pretty amazing. That aspect of it was great. What I didn't count on was the energy being so. It was been so shocking to go from being ill and then wanting to go out into the world after celebrating life again with this album that I just did, to being locked down again for such a long time, and having all that kind of self-reflection, and one would think, oh, look, I got all this time and I can do stuff, but I hit a wall, depression, and and loneliness. Obviously, I couldn't get together with my Chilean family, couldn't get together with my brothers in the band, and um, that kind of stuff. But you adjust, and so being back is pretty amazing because I'm in my studio, my little setup over here, and looking forward to whatever's next.
Which is great. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, that was a crazy time. I mean, I know for a fact. And so kind of like that, where you were sick, I had a thing where I had my retina tore, my eye just popped one day.
Jesus, oh my God.
So I had to have emergency surgery when I finally went and saw an eye specialist, because I was like, well, maybe it'll change. It was a weird thing. It was like these lines waving in front of my eye. It looked like a woman's hair, like in an old 60s video, psychedelic video. And I was like, what's wrong with my eye?
Oh my God.
And I still went and like hosted a iHeart alter ego concert with all these artists.
Hmm.
And just thought, maybe this will go away. And then all of a sudden I had a black blind spot. To fast forward, I had to get emergency surgery. They had to remove the liquid that would have blinded my right eye.
Oh
Then
my
they
God.
had to like laser it, and then they put a nitrous oxide bubble. So I know what you're talking about, like where you're right before the pandemic. I was laying flat. Like I had to literally lay. You have to do this thing where you have to lay flat, almost like you would on like a massage table.
Right. So no pressure on the eye.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I had got that going on for a couple of weeks, and when I was gone, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm out in the world again. And then of course, so I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
We've known each other for such a long time, and I know that back in New Jersey in Asbury Park at the radio station HTG, we're definitely one of the first stations that were playing What Is This? Your band back.
Oh yeah, way back and even before they called it college radio, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this place was actually, it's funny, I was doing college radio, but this was a commercial alternative station when there were only like 13 in the entire country.
Right.
And I remember playing it. But I want to go back to talk about that. When you formed your first band, Chain Reaction, you were in high school, right? What were you, like 16?
Actually, junior high, it wasn't even. It was just a three-piece with Hillel on guitar, me on guitar, Jack Irons on drums. We were 14 when we met at Bancroft. I think we're 15, and we started our first band, which had no bass. And we went through Chain Reaction, and then other names, and then it became Anthem once we got our bass player in high school named Todd Strassman. And then there was an Anthem over the hill in the valley, so we had to change our name to Anthem with a Y. And then,
Well, did you name it after the Rush song, or was it just like that? Or was it just
yeah, I mean, kind of, we listened to Rush as well. I mean, obviously, it was just, somebody just said Anthem, and we went cool, because some of the other names are like, Raven or whatever. Things were taken already pretty early on, and then that was our band during high school. And then when Todd decided to quit the band in 11th grade, that's when we got Flea to play bass. He took like some lessons from Hillel and me, and it didn't take him long because he was already an amazing musician. He played jazz trumpet, as we all know.
Yeah.
And so he had like 3 months to get it together. We had a Gazzari's Battle of the Bands. Remember Gazzari's?
Yes, of course. Legendary LA.
Oh my God, dude! It's because I used to live off of like Larrabee and Sunset, so I grew up like Licorice Pizza, Tower Records, Okie Dog, Turner's Liquor, Filthy McNasty's.
Yes, which of course later became Viper Room, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So that's amazing, like in that whole period. It's and then eventually, of course, Flea left, and then Hillel. And were you there the night those guys did that gig?
Yes, I was there. The very first one. They were opening for Gary Allen. Gary Allen suggested, you guys come up with something. Got a gig at the Grandia Room. And I was even there for a Donnie Bastone's house for one of the naming of the band sessions, where everyone was looking through, different possibilities for the names. And I remember the Jelly Roll Morton as Red Hot Chili Peppers coming up in the jazz book. Yeah, it was because, when Flea left, Hillel was so mad. We got a different bass player, a couple of bass players that we had for a second until we got Chris Hutchinson, who was, the final bass player in What Is This? But it was when Flea and Anthony, Hillel and Jack started that, basically came up with 2 or 3 songs, and it was immediately impactful. I remember being there going, uh-oh, this is awesome. It's going to be trouble because, we're sharing members. What's going to happen here, And so we both got record deals in the same kind of period of time. And Hillel and Jack decided to stay with me. That's why Jack Sherman and Cliff, rest in peace, and Cliff Martinez played on the first record. Then during the second What Is This record, the first one was Dave Jordan and EP. During the Todd Rundgren produced record, Hillel was kind of antsy, and you could tell I was like, oh, this guy wants to go back to the Peppers. And so he left, and went back to the Peppers. And then after Natasha and I had met and she became part of What Is This, Jack left, at which point, it wasn't What Is This anymore, and we wanted to try something new. So Natasha and I formed Walk the Moon. I don't know if you remember that. That was like,
yeah, you remember Walk the Moon, which
was
years later, of course, when that band Walk the Moon came out of the Midwest.
Yeah, exactly.
10 years ago, I was like, wow, that was Natasha's band at one time.
Yeah, we were actually on K-Rock. We had a pretty high charting song. I think it was number 2 or something. It was called "Daddy's Coming Home." And the best thing about that is that Frank Zappa saw the video on MTV and asked Weasel, "Find them for me, please. Whenever you see them, I want to meet them." So that's how we became friends with Frank. So that's a little trivia for you.
Yeah. Now, working with Todd Rundgren, whose idea was it? Because I love that you guys covered the Spinners' "I'll Be Around," right?
Yeah, that was Todd's idea for sure.
Yeah, it was a great song. Obviously, those Spinners, "If I Could It Be, I'm Falling in Love," all those tracks are great, right?
Oh my God. And we were an American Bandstand with that. Did you know that? Oh
yeah, my God. I know, which is so cool, right? I mean, that must have been amazing. And when Hillel, it was so sad when Hillel passed, of course.
Yeah.
The last interview he ever did with Anthony for the Chili Peppers around Uplift Mofo Party Plan, they came in RV to my radio station, to that station.
That's the last one. Wow, man.
Last one, and that he ever did before he passed away, which was, for years I had a friend who had recorded it, and I promised Anthony that I would give him a copy of that interview. He's been wanting it, but I've been having trouble locating my friend because I still want to I want to give it to him. He really wanted it. It was
yeah, of course.
But it was incredible. So then you've got Walk the Moon. And so you're doing that for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, basically we did one record, and we didn't play live. Like believe it or not, you've seen Natasha live many times. She had stage fright at one point, and I used to play so many shows that it was insane. Back in the day in LA, you could play like 100 shows a year because I had a jazz band and I had an improv thing, and I would do like tape loops, Ebo tape loops for a friend that was doing performance art. And I had Dwindle Brothers with Joe Berardi, the drummer of Fibonacci's. There's all these possibilities. And suddenly I just decided not to play any shows and wait for Natasha to get over so I kept trying to book a show. We finally booked Walk the Moon, and it was just the two of us acoustic. Actually, Nels Klein was there, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Wong's West. And the second, she was like, she couldn't sleep for like months before and so nervous. And then the second she got on stage and hit those keys, that she became this titan. And then I was the one that was all like, oh my God, I was so exhausted. She was incredible at that point. Anyway, so then we were, Walk the Moon in a sense was, we used drum machines when obviously to replace, we didn't want to replace Jack or anything. And so we kind of started exploring what was going to be kind of the prototypical, the fertile ground for songwriting for 11, so we started exploring different kinds of things. So the Walk the Moon record had that kind of, What Is This was more like kind of weird, angular, alternative, psychedelic, post, blues, funk, whatever it was. And Walk the Moon was more already like that Beatles, Stevie Wonder, Led Zeppelin weird melange that 11 used to, have,
Yes.
And so we were in the middle of the second record with David Lord that produced Big Express, and that's when Hillel passed away, and we were stuck in England, and we couldn't get home, and it was going really badly, and we were staying in this. It was one of those summers where there was no sun, totally depressing. And then Jack called that Hillel had passed, and it hit us really hard. So I had a kind of a mini breakdown, and so did Jack. So then he stopped the Peppers, and then like 2 years later, once we got back, or I think even less, the three of us decided, once he did that, he toured with Joe Strummer, and then we had gotten back together to work on a soundtrack, and we decided to form 11. So that was in 1990, and the first album came out in 91.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I that first record, and all those tracks, Rainbow's End, and I mean, all those were great records. And again, good radio stations played those 11 records back then.
Yeah.
And there were so many artists that obviously they were becoming successful that period of time that you were friends with and people loved.
Exactly.
Like the Soundgarden guys and Pearl Jam guys. I mean, you had these relationships with all of them. I mean, and they were really supportive of you guys back then.
Yeah,
right?
and not only supportive, but I think 11 having any kind of exposure besides diehard radio stations and fans that were literally keeping the music going because of their passion for it, because it wasn't because they had to play it, because we weren't released overseas, so imagine we're touring with Pearl Jam in Europe or with Soundgarden, and those guys, we met them on tour and then became such amazing friends, and they invited us to open up for them. So that's how 11 got their exposure all those years, with opening up for Soundgarden and Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing gift, for us. And years later, people say, "Oh, I was at that show. I remember you guys opened up, and then the Soundgarden shows. We did the tours with Tad and 11, the ones with Moby. It was just an incredible all the memories and the amazing shows we were doing, and they were so supportive. And I remember the boys sent us a copy of Super Unknown, literally like one of the test pressings before it came out, and we listened to it like probably 6 times in a row.
Yeah, it was so great.
And just mind blown, because we hadn't been moved like that since we were basically teenagers or kids, Tasha and I, by something so powerful.
Yeah.
And game changing and just incredible, so very blessed that along with Queen Songs for the Deaf, that we've had this extended families and friendships where we could be around for these amazing things that were happening.
Yeah, it is incredible. And and of course when Soundgarden split up, you and Natasha working with Chris on Euphoria Morning, which you were just saying you were going to actually do the whole album in its entirety. And I was with you. I did that album release. Remember, we were all in the basement of Electric Lady Studios.
Yes.
You guys performed, and I, interviewed Chris, and then really like the 4 of us hung out. We spent a lot of time while we were there, and it was great. Yeah. And I love that record. And tell me a bit about Chris reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, I'd really like to work with you." At that period of time.
Well, funny because it has a little bit of let's see if I can be succinct here, because it has a little bit of a sideways strip there. He stayed with us after Soundgarden stopped for that first time, and 96, a little bit after that, he stayed with us. We had a little tiny setup. We were already in the house that was 11 AD, but we didn't have the proper studio. So we did Sun Shower with whatever gear we had, and we did Ave Maria,
which was with a Christmas album, and of course the soundtrack.
Yeah, soundtrack, Great Expectations. Yeah, and so we had like a little I think we had an 8-track Tascam and maybe one digital interface that we used to sync together. And then while Chris was staying with us, he had this finished plan of inviting Al Kafara, the president of A&M, to come hear our music, and we had done some demos. Jack had gone to Pearl Jam, and we got Greg Upchurch, who you met that night because he was in the Euphoria Morning Band, and he was in 11 during Avant-Garde Dog period.
Yeah.
And so Chris got Al Kafara to come and listen to our stuff. Al Kafara loved what he heard. He offered us a record deal for $200,000. Natasha had this crazy idea to let's go see Al in the office. We went into the office. She sat down and we sat down together, and she said to Al that, we had the experience necessary to record and produce ourselves, and why not give us the $200,000 instead of finding a producer, engineer, and studios? Why don't you just give us that as a PO box to this music store that has all the stuff, and we're going to buy a studio, and we're going to put it in our house, and that's how we're going to make our record, and then we just kind of wait for it. And he had this like blank expression, like he's about to burst out laughing, like or tell us to get the fuck out of the office, and and suddenly he goes, "Wow, that's crazy. That's never happened before. I love it. Sure, let's do it." So, wow, there we go. And that's how we populated, thanks to Chris and Al Kafaro. Next thing you know, we had this amazing gear. That's how we did Avant-Garde Dog. And then eventually we did Euphoria Morning. So,
yeah,
which came out, Avant-Garde Dog came out after because they told us to hold on to it while we were doing the Euphoria Morning tour. So, anyway, long story short, then we write with Chris a bunch of tunes. Natasha helps him arrange the stuff. We have all the stuff ready because Daniel Lanois is going to produce the record. So we're at the house and we're doing demos for it. And then suddenly, a few days before it's supposed to start, there's people call and say that he's taking he's canceling all the projects for the moment. Chris is like, "What are we going to do?" And Natasha didn't miss a beat. She's like, "We're going to make the record ourselves. We're going to start tomorrow." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So next thing, 7 months later, the Euphoria Morning was done. We just did it like totally chill and taking our time and experimenting and no pressure. Nobody knew it was a beautiful time.
Yeah, writing Flutter
Yeah.
Girl and all those songs. And first, It Can't Change Me, which was our first single, but I was great. And you guys played so well that day. That was a cool thing about doing an album special in Electric Lady Studios,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. In the historical place and everything.
Yeah, it was really great. It was super great. Now, of course, working with Chris, that friendship, was forever with you guys. And let's talk about some of the other projects that you had worked on throughout this time. With the Queens of the Stone Age one, which is great because I know that you had done stuff before Lullabies to Paralyzed with songs for the deaf.
Yes.
Obviously, what a friend! I mean, it's a whole group of friends, right? I mean, you got Mark
Yeah.
Lanegan, who you've worked on so many of his records too, like Bubblegum, a bunch
Yeah.
and tell me about getting involved with Josh and that friendship and working with those guys.
Well,
And
the
I
first
think you were already friends with Lanegan.
I mean, yeah, of course. So many things came from that. I mean, the first memories, obviously, besides enjoying Kaya so much, was we were in the Euphoria Morning Tour. We were in the airport, and we were Screaming Trees. We're in line at the ticket counter, and so were we. Hutch was doing sound for them, and that's the first time we kind of saw Josh. Then he saw us at Mike Cameron's wedding because Natasha and I performed Ave Maria at this beautiful service in the church.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then we ended up A&M got folded in. We waited for A&M was gonna amazing artist friendly kind of place, and they got folded into Interscope. And so I remember Al Kafar, the president, calling us, and we all got drunk together the last day, and a bunch of different artists were there. And then we had to wait for a while. We got basically taken over by Interscope, who just kind of like threw out Avant-Garde Dog in 2000, just like whoop, whatever. But the good news is that we got to tour with Queens for the very first Rated R tour in the West Coast.
Right.
And that's how we met. That's how everybody, Gene was there and Catching and obviously Nick and Josh, and we became amazing friends. And I remember Josh telling us the story that he walked into soundcheck and Natasha and I had these crazy 1800 suits on and like the regalia, looking like vampires and eating like rare hamburgers. It's like 1:00 in the afternoon, and going, oh, these guys, okay, this is awesome. And so we just became amazing friends immediately. So he invited me to record the B-sides for Rated R. And then immediately after that, there's a sessions, 7 and 8. So next thing you know, Natasha and I are out there at Rancho and, a Hanging Tree and Making a Cross and the Nada and Up in Hell. Goss is singing with Natasha. I meet Mark Lanegan for the first time. This entire world opens up and it extends, this family that Josh has been such a huge part of connecting. Comes to light, and it's just and then obviously on Deaf, like I'm the Mexican TJ, Natasha's the the dominatrix kind of sounding voice, the radio womb, and then I'm playing theremin, she's playing piano. I'm doing ebos. We're just kind of all over, sprinkled throughout the record. That was before even after Nick left for me to join for the Lullabies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Nick, at one point, like I was actually on tour with the band and I was in Amsterdam and I'm like going in the tour bus and I see Nick just walking down the street. Nick Oliveri, like, Nick's in Amsterdam. That makes sense.
I remember like the first show we played, the Lullaby show, we played like a Stubbs barbecue, and we're on the flight there, and I suddenly see Nick is on the flight too. I'm like, oh my God, where's he going? And obviously he was going to our very first show. And because we were really close friends, he could only be mad up to a certain point, but obviously it was really hard for him. So imagine my first show. I only had 2 days of rehearsals to learn, all those bass parts and everything.
Yeah, from like regular John, and I felt
everything.
like
Just
everything, right?
2 days to Natasha and I joining the band. It's like we're kind of right there at the last minute, and Nick's on the flight, and then he's at the show, and I can see him because at Stubbs is a little backstage to the right that looks like a little like a little passageway, and he's just there, like he's just staring at me, and I'm going. I walk over between songs. I'm like, dude, the bass lines are awesome. Thank you. What can I say? Yeah. At least it didn't kill me. Oh, I love Nick.
Yeah, that's cool. You guys are friends through all that. And then, of course, on Lullabies, you did, on the next record, and you did a bunch of different stuff on there as well.
Yeah, in the era, I recorded and mixed, and then ended up playing a couple of things here and there. But that was a really crazy record. I love that record. It sounds absolutely nuts. but we had a great time doing that. Sorry to interrupt. We were saying.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great, and it was really cool. Hey, were you on the? There was that one B-side that was a great cover of Elliott Smith's Christian Brothers. Were you on that as well, or?
No, I wasn't on that one. Although I'm trying to remember now whether if we actually recorded it at the house or not. That was a B-side later on, right? It wasn't for Rated R.
Yeah, no, that was a little later. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll try to remember, but sometimes, I can remember some things, most things, but every once in a while I'm like, okay, I don't know.
And no, that's great. And so the next time that you and I ran into each other, of course, was during them Crooked Vultures, because it was Roseland. We were backstage.
Oh my God, it's not there anymore, is it?
No, it's so sad. I love that band.
Oh, dude. Okay, yeah.
It really depresses me, that it's gone. But it was a great night, and I remember it was all of us backstage. Of course, Josh, Dave Grohl, John Paul Jones, which is just an amazing guy. Such a sweet, humble
genius, humble legend.
Yeah, right. He's incredible.
It's enough to make you stop in your tracks. It's like he's humble and he's a genius and he's so sweet. And every night I had to pinch myself on being on stage with him. You know what I'm saying?
Because you're a Zeppelin fan, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Again, another multi-instrumentalist like you, somebody who can play a lot of different instruments and play them well. I mean, what a great guy. I remember, he's telling me a story once when he was up visiting me to do an interview at the radio station in New York, and he's like, yeah, he goes, well, my dad couldn't believe. He goes, why are you joining a band? He goes, you're making such a great living being a session guy. Join this band. Well, it worked out pretty well for him anyway, right? Exactly.
I know. Yeah, Mo always tells the story how she talked him into going to the audition.
Yeah,
funny. Yeah,
which is incredible. But I love that. That was a great time. People were hoping you guys were going to, make another record at some point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for me, it was such a pleasure and stuff. I mean, I was part of the recording in terms of recording some of the stuff with Josh and recorded 2 or 3 songs together, and then once they asked me to play with him live, and we became this unit. It's always been a little tricky because live, obviously, we were this unit of four people. But very often you see only 3 people in a photo, or people talk about 3 people. And I understand, because I was kind of like, almost like how they took the utility guy, but not really, because I was up in front and I was singing and playing.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, and they even walked off stage to get told me to play a solo or whatever. I just loved how we grew, by the last part of the tour, how we had extended and our extemporizations or improvisations, group improvs were so in tune. It was incredible, the chemistry that we were capable of, and I was always hoping that we get to revisit that again. Obviously, every once in a while it comes up again, and I'm just waiting to someone to tell me, because obviously I would love to be a part of another round, and I think it would be really timely,
People could use that right now. Grohl on drums, and Josh, and obviously John Paul Jones, and I'm glad John Paul Jones is still healthy and still with us. It'd be great.
Oh, of course, no. I mean, he's so he keeps it so together, and he's so young in spirit, and every day he's jamming and he's playing with something, going somewhere, bluegrass camp. Got a mandolin with him at all times, and it's always he's going to be he's got this secret of being connected to music, which keeps you young, and he takes care of himself. It's great.
Yeah, which I love about him. Talk to me about working with Lanigan, because Mark and I, like I said, I just went over and saw Mark and Shelley before they left the U.S.
Yeah.
I went over and visited them at their place, and everything was pretty much packed up except for the little studio. So out there and did shot something for them that they were going to use for Europe for their new EP.
Yeah.
I mean, which was with her Black Phoebe, which was very cool.
Yeah,
we were talking about you, and you got so much love from everybody. It was really
that's really sweet. I mean, I love everybody too. Like I feel very blessed, and even in the midst of all the hardships and heartaches that obviously all human beings have to suffer. Losing Natasha was mind-boggling, but
that broke my heart. And I gotta just tell you, I mean. And I didn't have an opportunity to reach out to you when Natasha passed, but it was really heartbreaking, because I know how in love you were, and just there was this like the two of you, which is
crazy connection,
beautiful unity,
I mean, the thing is that obviously, as you've seen through my solo records, I keep her present with my music, and she's present inside me every time I make music. Now she's like, because we did music together so long, and we were almost like two halves of a whole. That even though she's physically not here anymore, that Natasha-ness in the universe is something that I experience daily. And it's like this thing that's already inside me, and so in a way it's I feel blessed, obviously, that I was lucky enough to share like a quarter century with her, but I still feel her present, which is beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, so sorry, get back to that again.
She was absolutely lovely. I
Thank you.
love that I got to spend time with you guys and
Yeah.
things
Yeah,
over the
absolutely.
years. And it was Matt Cameron who actually gave me the news. Speaking of Matt, he sang at his wedding.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and then I saw you. One of the last times we ran into each other was at the year anniversary of at Chris Cornell's memorial over at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. That's the first
Yeah.
time I've seen you in a bit.
Yeah.
But I wanted to. So it's great working with Mark. It was tell me about working on those records with
Yeah.
Mark.
Well, I mean, okay, so imagine the first time I meet him, I walk into Rancho, and Josh goes, "I want you to meet Mark Lanigan." And I turn around and I scan the room, and I don't see anybody. I'm like thinking, "What, he's taking a piss or something?" And suddenly I turn, like, no, look again, and this is his half face. There's a door and a half eye. And I hear this, "Hey, bro," you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, hi, pleasure to meet you." Anyway, so we realized pretty early on, like, one of the first things we did was not long after that. He came over, and in 3 hours we had a complete track finished. Me playing the instruments and him guiding me. So it kind of works like this. It's like he comes in. I know that he doesn't like to spend a lot of time in the studio, and he likes to kind of like describe something, whether directly or abstractly, and want it to somehow manifest. So I'm really used to reading him and moving fast, at creating, starting to create. That you record. Okay, first we start with play a bit of organ. They say, "No, okay." Then he goes, "Adjust this and that." It's almost like I'm his instrument, in a way. And we get to the point where he can. It's finally, the song is coming to life, and then he sings it. I record him. We get the vocal together, and then maybe add a couple things. And that's kind of the way it works with a lot of the stuff. Often, like, collaborations at a distance or stuff. It's like, it's just kind of become so many albums now, and I'm always ready to kind of like spin in place and make it sudden left turn wherever suddenly he decides. So each album, I mean, we've obviously incorporated electronics and a lot of his love for 80s and 70s electronica and stuff, and that really expanded my palette as well. I mean, obviously, I'd listened to a lot of the stuff, but in terms of the technical aspects of, using old synths and drum machines and how to program them and how to play them and how to make them sound good and how to use them in arrangements, and obviously my synth collection grew.
Yeah.
Plus, he has his own. And so it's been incredible. It's just this thing where just once we enter into it, it just it's time, and he really prepares me well. He sends me a bunch of reference things, and he starts to describe things to me. He always sends me lyrics, and ideas, and he's kind of like my he's one of my best friends, and is also one of those rare friends that you can really count on. When stuff gets really bad, like an honest, direct, helpful friend. There's no agenda. There's no like one-sidedness. He's a pure human being, a strong human being, a caring human being, a smart human being, a funny as fuck human being. Jesus,
Yes.
when he right,
Yeah,
most people don't realize he's one of the funniest people on this planet.
he is, and he's just. You're right about that thing about Mark, man. He's got just a beautiful soul, and he is a real friend, and he's really straight up about things, and that's what
Exactly.
I like.
I count on him. I send him, things in progress. I send him lyrics in progress. When I was making Hum, he was the only person that was hearing the dailies.
Yeah.
He was really encouraging and helpful and supportive, and we kind of count on each other to be there, to listen, to have an opinion, or to kind of like shoulder someone to lean on, which is really, really, a special thing to have, and especially in an artist that you admire so much. I mean, that's the thing. I have to kind of take the fan boy out of my head when I'm working with him. Otherwise, that would be impossible to move because the second he starts to sing,
Yeah.
it's over for me. It's like no matter what, I have to keep it together and like make sure the levels are good and have any suggestions or whatever. Keep it together as a producer. But really, I'm just listening to his voice and I'm melting. So
Yeah, I mean, it's great too because I mean he's just so loved. Both of you guys have a great overseas, like what I mean. I mean, over in Europe, you guys have. There's a lot of love for you guys over there, which is,
it's a beautiful thing.
It's just got to be, like I know when he was talking to me, it's like all the touring that was set up and ready to go at that period of time, and obviously everybody would, with the pandemic, not being able to go out.
Yeah, I know. I was even gonna, he was at the festival in Belgium. He was curating. I was playing that, and we were gonna do Bubblegum in its entirety. I was gonna play with him. But hopefully, next year at some point, it's gonna come back to something.
It'll definitely happen. I know it for a fact, which is great. We gotta. I mean,
we need it. We need it. I mean, it's like
it's gonna be everybody's best show of all time, right? I mean, everybody's the first show. There's gonna be so much emotion, and passion that's just been built up, and
then also the sharing, the being in a community, the being around other human beings, feeling that energy, almost that ritualistic energy of experiencing something in the moment, of being lost in time, eternal now, kind of weird, kind of whoa, kind of, it's some of my best memories are just losing myself in shows and how magical it can be, and it's something that I think is necessary for us to live and to be nourished in our soul. So I really hope that as soon as possible, obviously when within safety, but I'm guessing that sometime next year, April, May, June. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And I hope so. I've been thinking about it all the time. I mean,
yeah, me too.
Next to those live shows. Talk about working with Polly Jean. PJ Harvey, because you've done some great stuff with her too, and she's an amazing woman.
Incredible.
Yeah, talk to me about your experience of working with her.
Well, imagine like when the first in the early '90s, when the first album started to come out. Sometimes I have a feeling about somebody. Not only do I love their music, but I also have this feeling I meet them eventually, like we're destined to meet, kind of thing, And so when Josh said to me, "Pardon me," for Desert Sessions 9 and 10, like we get back to the desert, and invited Twiggy Ramirez, Jordy White, invited Dean Ween, and PJ Harvey's going to be there. I'm like, oh my god! Yeah. So he picks me up. He's got his car full of gear. Polly's in the front seat with him, and then she scoots over, and then I'm sitting next to them, and I meet her for the first time, and we chat the whole time. And obviously we didn't crawl home, and I was there when her and Goss said there when there would be a better time. Make it with you, all that stuff. That was an incredible beginning. So then, she moved to LA, and Natasha, Polly, and I became, just almost inseparable. We saw each other all the time, hung out all the time, and she was part of the Natasha tribute show at the Henry Fonda.
Yeah,
she came down and performed for that. That was really special and really magical. And we've just been amazing friends throughout the years, and very similar to Mark. Always kind of like sending each other stuff, and then she invited me to be part of this Hope 6 demolition project. And that was so incredible because I get there. And it's a setup in a, flood setup, this rectangular room in the basement of Somerset House. And it's people going to be watching us record, but we can't see them. And it's just, John Parrish and Ken Rowe and Terry Edwards and Mike Smith and Enrico and Alessandro, Gabrielli and Stefana. Who am I missing? Jean-Marc Bouty, Mick Harvey, of course. And James Johnston, become friends for life with these people, and that band. I don't know if did you got to see that show? Of course.
Oh, I did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you see the one in LA as well as the one in New York?
No, just the New York one because I interviewed.
That's right. We did Roseland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great, and it was cool seeing
So did you remember the feeling of that band? It was so unusual because it was so fragile, yet strong.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit theatrical, but it still had this kind of spontaneity to it.
Yeah. And I love her.
Yeah.
She's got, I'm always from day one, from Dry all the way up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's always just been so great. And that was a really cool band, just like all her friends, like you said, having Bad Seeds guys in there. John Parrish, she's come up and visited this, station before in New York when I had her on. And I love, she's always, it likes to put people together, and I think that's one of the things that's really cool about her. Kind of like when you work with Josh, right? It's
Exactly. Yeah, very similar. And obviously it's become this. A lot of people from her past kind of came together for this last band, and similar kind of thing, and there's a kind of a interesting resonance that happens when you realize also that everyone's kind of coming from a slightly different, some
yes,
of them musically and some of them in personality wise, certainly, and suddenly there's a goal, which is the music, her music in this case, and in general that's what I love about being in the studio and being part of something, is how can I be supportive and assistive to the general vibe and goal here, um,
yeah.
and that's my favorite part of being creative, and making music, and I love making solo records, and then in a sense I still feel like those are not completely solo because I kind of have Natasha and like Chris and all my loved ones and all my influences inside my head as I'm doing it. I don't not working completely alone, but certainly being part of like the Queen's records or the Hope Six or 11, which I miss so much. That obviously Jack moved back down, so he's down here in LA. So looking forward to getting together with him and recording some stuff in the future.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
So good, and
he's
so
incredible.
responsible for so much. I
Yeah.
gotta. There's something going on, right, where a bunch of people are covering your solo stuff and 11 stuff. There's
Oh yeah. It's Bienvenidos a los noventas. Welcome to the '90s. It's like this blog and from Spain, and they secretly organized this, and I think it came out today of a podcast, and all these bands from Spain and I think an Argentinian one from Canary Islands, covered different songs from. I haven't heard them all yet. I downloaded the app now to listen to it, but it was a total surprise. Suddenly, like the last couple of days, it appeared like tag me on this. I'm like, whoa! And there's some really crazy like versions, like interesting. From all you could hear is like 15 seconds of each song, but there's like a spider that's played in a kind of a post-punky, poppy kind of way, and there's all interesting stuff. Kind of a grungy version of a couple of the other tunes. So I'm looking forward to hearing that, and it's obviously a huge honor for me to know that, that my music and the music that I've been involved in with 11 and Desert Sessions has reached out in such a way that it inspires people to do a tribute
all over the world.
Yeah, exactly, and it's an incredible thing and totally humbled.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to you. Before we talk about home, I want to talk to you about some of your favorite albums of all time, because and the albums that have been really seminal in your life and things that you love. And I always ask people to pick 7. Just sound like a good number.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, like if we were really going to go for all of them, but what was good about that, the picking 7 is that it made it extremely distilled into what the really super 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 influential ones were, and sometimes it's not necessarily that they were musically 100% that, but something about an attitude, or something about a relation in your growth as a musician.
Yeah.
So should I start?
We start with the Beatles' White Album, which which is such a great record.
I mean, that's a duh. That's a lot of people are like, yeah, well, duh.
But I mean, it's interesting that people have always said, oddly enough, it's called the first album called the Beatles, but it's actually like 4 guys doing solo. It's like 4 guys almost, because where they were at personally at that period of time.
Yeah, and it's extremely experimental, and I was extremely Beatle aware when in the '60s, born in '62, so I was making my mom buy me the singles as they came out. So when I was living in Mexico City at the time, I must have been 8 or 9, when my mom's neighbor buddy, hipster music collection, everything stuff, brought over the White Album on vinyl, and and I just like an entire summer I just absorbed this thing, and it woke up all kinds of things. My love for any classical music came from just hearing George and getting deeper into where George was coming from with a lot of his Carnatic influences, Ravi Shankar, the kind of the production on it, the sounds on it, the creativity involved in making this record. Obviously they're extremely experimental, I don't know. I'm not sure whether they were partying a lot or psychedelics or whatever was happening, but it has this kind of like sense of like inevitability and creativity and first time a lot of things were being done or played, like almost like templates for things to come, you know.
Yeah.
So the Beatles, the White Album for me is the quintessential early imprint. Okay, you know, I was already playing guitar since I was four, you know, a few chords, and that was a record that just completely made me imagine that I would love to be part of something like that or to have that in my life.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's a great record. The next one you picked, I found really interesting too. It was the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack album.
Yes,
With, Murray Head and,
yeah,
Yvonne Lewin,
yeah. Ted Neely, Carl
yes.
Anderson.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah,
amazing. Obviously a brilliantly written record. Murray Head, that was him. He had like three hits in his life. Like Superstar was a huge hit here in America, right?
yeah,
At that
yeah.
1960. And then years later in the 80s, he had One Night in Bangkok or something. And then,
Right.
a 60s hit years before that. But I mean,
Yeah,
it's very,
didn't Yvonne Elliman have like the morning after for the what that ship disaster movie or something?
and she did like, remember If I Can't Have You from like Saturday Night
Oh yeah,
Fever and I do all that kind of stuff, Yvonne Element, right?
yeah,
But she did I Don't Know How to Love Him and all that on this record. And
yeah,
I mean, at that period of time, Jesus Christ Superstar was such a big deal when you and I were young kids. Remember
yeah,
how
yeah. I
it
mean,
was?
I was living in Mexico, and I remember my friend's father like had a owned a cinema, and we were trying to go see it. That's how my access was to listen to it very often until I got the vinyl. And there were people picketing back then. Obviously, it would have been like whatever 71, 72. Um,
It was really
and
upset about it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and but I mean, for me, it was like something. Maybe it has to do with like a lot of harmonic tension and release that Andrew Lloyd Webber has a lot of Prokofiev influence and a lot of the Russian school like Shostakovich and whatever major
yeah,
minor tension release stuff. All that stuff that happens in it. And I learned I only want to say if there is a way, on guitar, and I took that I played it, and people were like, "Oh my god!" Phonetically, of course, I was just like, "I want to say." Um, and I remember just Carl Anderson's voice and Ted Neely's voice, and it just had this the texture, the performances on this, and the songwriting on this, because they had over. It was almost going to be like pre-11 because Natasha had an extreme classical vibe that she came from, and the writing on this has definitely some of that inside it, even though can be considered pop or rock in some ways. Like that overture is insane.
yeah,
Don't stand,
yeah.
don't look at it. Anyway, all that stuff. I mean, when it just got together, I think a week into it, I sang her the thing from beginning to end. I said, "You want to hear something? I'll sing all of Jesus Christ Superstar now." From
That's,
beginning to end, every song and mocking all the orchestra stuff, she laughed for like a long time.
when it finally became available on VHS, did you buy it right away? Did you like
Yes.
have
Oh yes. And
And
I still have the D somewhere too.
yeah,
It's
it's
pretty
when you
amazing if you see it now. It's still.
yeah. I watched it with one of my ex girlfriends who loved it. Like 5 years ago, I remember she
Right.
said, "We gotta watch Jesus Christ Superstar." So it's the first time I'd seen it in years, which was cool.
It's
It was
pretty edgy. That sensibility of the time. The sets aren't really there.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's for its time. It's amazing. Now it's
Yeah.
funny because now these first three albums that you picked are all doubles, right? So the next one is Physical Graffiti, of course. Which is
Yeah.
the sixth studio album from Zeppelin. And there's a lot of stuff to choose from there. I'm sure you've walked down St. Mark's Place where the cover was shot, right? I mean, at some point or another.
Yeah,
Like I said,
I have. Yeah, I mean,
the building. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's crazy. It's a real, yeah. And I remember how you could lift the people that don't have the vinyl don't know this. You could lift the stuff and change the images.
Yes.
Um,
That was cool to do those die cut sleeves like that, Yeah.
yeah, I mean, imagine just the artwork. I mean, that. I mean, I love Zeppelin and I loved all the albums, but for some reason, Physical Graffiti, it always sounds like them in a room or in a castle or where a manor or whatever. This it has this chemistry. It has this kind of John Bonham's feel on this, and just the atmosphere of like you know that for me that became kind of like the blueprint for a live recording, a live there's a couple of dubs you hear here and there, but the meat and potatoes is all like recorded at the same time. It's just a genius record, and from down, straight away, like I used to put it on and just like that was my party record. That's there because it has groove, it has this amazing obviously it's rocking, and it's got with John Paul Jones and all the kind of mystical arrangements with trons and the cool synths and the clav.
Yeah, it was really cool. There's so much great stuff, and even though some of the stuff was like things they had half written, maybe around Houses of the Holy or Zeppelin 4, they ended up
Right.
breaking a lot of stuff up. And you're right, it does sound like they're in a room together. If you listen to like Sick Again, and it just almost sounds like at the end of the album, and it almost sounds like there's a little bit of a mistake, which makes it really cool. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's about that feel, which is so great. And of course, I don't, people always, would like, some people would like, oh, they stole all this blues stuff, but they made it their own. I mean,
Yeah.
look, in my time of dying, Blind Willie Johnson, the original Jesus Make Up My Dying Bed, but it's
Yeah.
still, they took it and made it, it's an adaptation. That's how I've always looked
Yeah,
at it.
absolutely. I mean, I'm not mad at them for that. I mean, obviously, Blind Willie Johnson and Bird Yanch, the original Blackwater Side, and all that stuff is
Or Memphis Mini, like doing When the Levee Breaks. But I mean, that's like they just took the frame, a little bit of a blueprint and made it all their own. Obviously, there's
exactly.
I mean, I am glad they finally got Jake Holmes his money though for Dazed and Confused. You know what I mean? Like,
Right? Yeah, they did. Okay. Yeah.
he definitely did. Even though but a lot of people don't realize that guy who wrote Dazed and Confused, Jake Holmes, which they eventually, like I said, added his name to the writing. He made most of his money writing jingles. Years later. So even he wasn't like poor. He wrote "Be All You Can Be" for the Army, and he wrote
Oh wow.
"Be a Pepper." I'm a Dr. Pepper thing. He wrote those jingles.
Oh,
So
well, those are good. Those are pretty big ones. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So he did okay, but I'm glad he finally. I guess when they did the lawsuit, they finally he wrote a letter to Jimmy Page, and that Jimmy, of course, never probably got, and said, hey man, I think you borrowed my song, and then eventually, but everything's cool. It all worked out.
Yeah.
The next record you pick is great. Stevie Wonder, Music of My Mind. It's the start of this run of four great albums for me. Like, it's my favorite albums that he did at a period of time because he just re-signed with Motown. He got complete artistic control. So no more Berry Gordy right over him. He got to do what he wanted to do. And he worked with those two incredible synthesizer pioneers.
Margulif, yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, Margulif, Robert gave me a ride home, not that like last year from we were at a friend's house.
Oh, wow.
And I love talking to him because I love Intervisions and Talking Book and Fulfilling His First Finale and Music of My Mind. So I got to pick his brain about.
Oh, that's amazing.
But what is great? What he said to me was, he said, look, he goes, we came up with all those sounds and I helped Stevie. He goes, Stevie wrote the song. He goes, don't ever make a mistake. He goes, Stevie had the songs, which was really cool. But, Malcolm and Robert, they were just, and then he did that stuff for Isley Brothers, That Lady, part 1 and 2. That was also them. Those great sounds.
Incredible. I mean, but I think, they're probably being a bit, he's being a big humble. Yes, of course. But Stevie was, improvising.
Yeah, and it was those guys deserve more credit than they get. I mean, we're brilliant.
I mean, for me, it's imagine so Stevie is that he's creating all of this from the ground up, from the drums up.
Yeah, really. I mean, I was saying.
Yeah, and then adding stuff, and then if you listen to the Moog bass lines, they're fluid. He's improvising them, so everything is constantly moving. It's not blocky, it's not repetitious. It's and so has this living flow to it all through his genius, And so me, for my solo records, it's a huge inspiration for me. Stevie doing this, obviously for those next few records. Intervisions, Fulfilling This, Talking Book. Because later on when he got the drum machines and stuff and started to do stuff for
Songs in the Key of Life,
and he started. Well, I mean, even Songs for the Key of Life and Secret Life of Plants, which has some really interesting things as well, the beatboxes and stuff. but a little bit later on when he stopped playing drums, basically, right? Is
Yeah.
when, yeah,
Yeah, it was kind of like at that point. It was, but there was that great run, right? You know what I mean? Those records were incredible.
yeah.
So good. I still love them. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that you love that record as well. Now, have you ever? Now, of the last bands that we saw so far, I mean, did you ever get to see Zeppelin play live?
I didn't. I did not. I did not. I mean, I think I had a chance. I forgot why it didn't happen, but I didn't.
But Stevie, ever see him, or was it mostly stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I saw him kind of as part of a celebration thing, and I wish I could have seen. That's but obviously every time I can see on TV or footage, but an actual full live show, I would have loved to have seen some of the '70s ones.
Yeah, same here. I wish I could have had.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
I'd like to go back in time for it. The next album you pick is one of the greatest albums of all time, obviously, too. From that towards the end of '75, recorded, and it was big in 1976, and it was A Night at the Opera, the fourth Queen album.
Yeah,
It is absolutely brilliant. And I'll just finish by saying I was very blessed to see Queen do that album at the Beacon Theater in New York City. I mean, I got to go when my older brother took me to that show, and I was, because you and I are like born within months of each other. So
yeah, exactly.
I got to go, and that was a life-changing show to see Queen do the first four albums, like Sheer Heart Attack and the Queen 2 and Night at the Opera. I mean, it was like that's when they were rocking. I mean, they were amazing, and it was just so beautiful. It was such an incredible thing. Tell me why this album is important to you.
Well, I was already kind of listening to Queen a little tiny bit, but I'd heard a couple of tunes on the radio. But when Night at the Opera came out, it was I think it was Midnight Special.
Yeah.
I want to say that had the is this the first video and stuff, and waited for it like it was a Friday night, because Saturday night was Don Kirshner, and waited up for it, and then it just came on, and then I had to have the record. And then I got confused because Queen 2 has the same image in the cover. I was like, is this the record? No, it's the other one.
Yeah.
I got Night at the Opera, and of course it changed me forever in terms of guitar playing, because Brian May's tones, that exquisite tone and the phrasing, never mind obviously the band and the songs and Freddie and everything. I got to see them live in the '70s. I got to see them at the Forum a couple of times. I think I saw the tour, definitely News of the World, if not Day at the Races. No, Day at the Races was the first one, '77, I think it was.
You played with Thin Lizzy opening. Yeah.
Yes. And then I saw them again at the Forum a couple of times, and I got to see them like 3 or 4 times before the '80s. But the thing is that sonically, again, for me it works together. It's the songs, the production, Brian May's tones, the way that his solos, when they enter, they just take over the world. It's like he's like a lead singer or a bridge that comes in with this beautiful second melodic motif appears, and so that was a huge inspiration for me. I mean, guitaristically. Obviously, I'd already been playing for a while, and just to get just to teach me about phrasing, and then it made me want to search out different ways of phrase on the guitar, so that it's a little more vocal, a little more that's what started listening to a lot of Indian classical for that reason too, different kinds of phrasing. So yeah, huge for me.
That's great. Now, the next one you pick as an album, I remember, I guess you and I were probably around the time this came out. You and I were probably like 17, 18.
Yeah.
It was David Byrne and Brian Eno together doing My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. And I remember when this record came out, buying it. Because, I mean, I think it came out around a little bit after Fear of Music, in between maybe that and Remain in Light. I'm guessing.
Exactly.
Trying to remember that. But I just remember what I loved on that record was when they sampled the Preacher going, "Help me, somebody."
Yeah. I know.
It was so great. That was
my God.
Played that in college radio. Tell me about why you love this record, because what two geniuses together on this.
I mean, imagine like as you remember, this became the record to play when you were hanging out at the parties. Like it was danceable. It was intellectual.
Yeah, it was.
And it just had that kind of feeling of like the genius of it, the pulse, the kind of avant-garde aspect of it too, the sonics, the textures, the pre-recorded stuff, like almost like pre-sampling. kind of stuff that it just felt so new to me. It's just, obviously there'd been some stuff, but Holdrasuka and then the people that have been doing stuff but it just had this kind of openness to it. And obviously then Remain in Light came out a little bit after, right? I think
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Exactly.
And Adrian Belew just tearing everyone's guitar mind in half. But yeah, that was still to this day I can listen to it. I listened to it actually not too long ago on a drive back from Santa Barbara, and it just struck me how after not listening to it for 20 years, how much it's a part of me still, how much it's a part of so many different musics, or you can kind of feel it inside other people's music because it inspired them as well.
It really did. And when it came out, I mean, obviously, Brian Eno had, he'd done stuff like, with No Pussy Pudding with Robert Fripp and
Yeah.
Harold Budd and all the other stuff. And of course, his great solo stuff after Roxy music. But man, there was something about these two together that was really special on that record, right? I mean, I love that.
Yeah, and I just realized that they did another one not too long ago or 10 years ago, and I don't think I've ever heard it. Have you heard it?
Yeah, I have heard a couple tracks off of it.
Okay, I'm going to investigate that because
Yeah.
they had a good chemistry.
Yeah, they really did. It's great. Now it's cool. The next record, the seventh one you pick is, I thought when I saw that you picked Fred Frith, I thought about having these records, on Ralph Records, the Residence label,
I know.
Back in the day, and there was just so much cool, crazy stuff that was on that record label, like Tuxedo Moon, you know what I mean? And but this record was really cool, and I think this was his second solo record, other than the Art Bears and some of the other stuff that he did.
Yeah, besides the solos and stuff like that, and then Massacre came right after this with Bill Maher. Fred Maher and Bill Laswell, and I got to see them at the Whiskey of all places. Well, this record is very interesting because it really became a big part of me exploring. Obviously, there's a lot of folk stuff happening, but more in the sense of like Celtic and Baltic, and like reedy clarinets and weird time signatures and weird fuzz noises and dissonance and consonance. And like this, it's the kind of stuff you almost put on when you want people to leave your house at the end of the night.
Yeah, it's like, can you please leave? I want you to go.
You put this on and like, but Fred is such a genius, and I've seen him live many times, and there's a whimsical aspect to his pure improvisation. It's some people look at it as pure noise sometimes, but it's compositionally so strong. And this record still to this day has a lot of beautiful moments. It's like a total journey, and it's got the kind of this 4-track recording, kind of just microphones and not a lot of stuff, but this amazing playing. And it's an island, desert island record for me for sure. Like I could not, and I'm very happy that you found the original cover, because there's other covers out since then, but that was the one I remember holding the vinyl, going, "Oh my God, this is incredible."
So wild, that "Don't Cry for Me" into "Hands of the Juggler," like that whole run of the first, that was like third or fourth song on the record, but I was really cool. So it was really, like you said, I mean,
that really long section with that beautiful da 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 da, and then all this bittersweet, like almost like your genes remember these melodies that are 300-400 years old from like the Caucasus Mountains or some, like, because my grandmother was born in Cluj in Transylvania, so like part of it is like, wait a second, this sounds so familiar.
Sounds like something from back up, which is amazing. It's incredible. Yeah. He the avant-garde stuff that was coming out through, like I said, Ralph Records, and even all the no wave stuff that was going on, and Lounge Lizards. Did you like that kind of stuff too? That was
I love the Lounge Lizards, and I got to meet John Lurie through Flea once.
Portions and things like that. Yeah,
I got to see Glenn Branca with the ensemble do Symphony No. 1, I think it was, at the Club Lingerie, and I want to say it's 81. And one of the loudest things I've ever seen, besides Philip Glass at the Roxy, with all Moogs and stuff, and the people with the oboes and the girl going,
Yeah,
incredible. I got to see some incredible things at the, living right there, the Roxy, and like, obviously but the Branca at the Lingerie, and then obviously a lot of stuff came from that. But that was really, really powerful, having like 13, 14 jazz masters through Fender Twins, all in alternate microtonal tunings, just making the entire room start to oscillate and vibrate, and you feel it through your entire body. And I remember after the show, like walking out, and my friends like,
Yeah.
I was like, that's just.
Your ears are just like completely sizzling at that period of time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
God, Philip Glass was great too. I mean, his studio in New York City, Looking Glass Studios, is really.
You've been there? Oh my God, it's amazing.
Bowie when he was working on Heathen.
Oh, that's right.
Really cool. That was a great experience. It was right down there, like right north of Chinatown. You know what I mean? That area, Canal and Broadway. But yeah, I want to just say how much I love doing this with you today. Let's talk about the final thing I want to talk about is the new record, Hum. Now, I love that, it's Mike Patton's label, right?
Yes.
Ipecac, right? Which is, some people pronounce it Ipecac, or Ipecac. There's different ways to pronounce it. It's like root kind of, what it's named after, the record label. But I love that. Was Mike the guy who did they sign you directly? Was he like a big fan? Obviously, yeah.
Well, I mean, they put out Spark back in 2010, and so we've always had this connection, this relationship, and so Fragments, my second solo record, I wanted them to put it up, but they were already it was too late. They're busy for the year, and then I reached out to them for this, and obviously Mike and I had collaborated on a Connie Converse song for a John Zorn compilation, yeah. And then he sang on Luna Sol, my Alain Johannes trio with Cote and Fela Fonseca. We put out a single in Spanish, and he sang with me on that. And so I just reached out to them already, and they put out the trio, and told them I wanted to the trio record was going to take a second to finish, and it's still in the works as soon as we can. But I wanted to basically, I felt it was time to do a solo record, and they had to be patient because that was last year, and then I hit a kind of a wall, like it'd been like. We did a tribute for Chris at the Forum, and I just kind of hit a wall with depression. Like him passing brought up a lot of stuff, depression and little bit of health things. And so I went to Europe on tour, and then I got back and immediately in November and immediately got sick, and then got up from bed and made this record, and then headed to Chile. So they were so supportive and so happy to receive it. And Mike has texted me a bunch of times. And they've done an amazing job on getting people to know about it and spread the word. And it's just a great place to be because it's artists, it's amazing artists in the band. You can talk to them. It's everyone's trying to make the best music possible and bring it to people. It's just feels great.
And it's and they're, like I said, they're a cool label. I'm so glad that they did it. You know what I mean?
Me too.
I just think that they're great, and I got to say, I love the way the album opens. It's just there's so much beautiful, like the different guitar things you're doing with the guitar, and like Mermaid Scream, and
that's actually a Portuguese guitar. I don't know if you've ever heard of Carlos Paredes. He's like a fado, considered fado, but it's a crazy looking instrument. It's got 12 strings and it's curved, and
so cool. It's got a beautiful sound to it. And then
it's almost like a harpsichord or something, Sorry.
It's a trip, yeah. And Free's a great song too. I mean, you put that out as a single too, which was cool.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I want to tell people to make sure that they go and check out the new record. It's called Hum. And Alan, I hope I get to see you and hang with you sometime in the near future. I hope it's not that long.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, we're both here now, and so as soon as we can, let's hang. I'd love to hang and chat music and history because we both have experienced so much at the same time. You know what I mean?
We really have. You know what I mean? It's great. We had so many mutual friends. I mean, obviously we were all devastated by our loss of Chris.
Yeah.
That was, as well. But I got to say that he'd be really happy that we were doing the show together right now and talking about all this music. You know what I mean, right?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Man.
And I love it. But I want to tell people they got to check out the new record. And thanks for doing this. It was cool going through some of your favorite records with you as well.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, man. Thanks for having me, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, Alan, we'll do it again soon. Absolutely.
I can't wait.
You got it. Thanks so much for doing it today, Alan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Everybody, I want to once again mention to you, if you haven't checked out, no matter how you get music, first of all, it's out on vinyl. I have the album on vinyl. I picked it up. But it's also streaming wherever you stream music, however you consume and enjoy music. I like to use the word enjoy music better than consume music, although we consume it because it's something that we love. But no matter how you enjoy your music, check out Alan's new record, and it is called Hum. I just want to thank you so much for watching today. This is In a Lonely Place. I'm Matt Pinfield, and I've had such a great time. Make music the center of your day, the center of your life. That and your loved ones will get you through anything. That's for sure. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back with you very soon.